Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I want you to just close your eyes for a quick second and imagine a vibrant, bustling pond. Picture the sunlight sparkling on the water, green aquatic plants swaying right below the surface, frogs leaping off lily pads, little crabs scurrying along the edge, and maybe some ducks paddling across the middle. It's pretty busy, isn't it? Well, today we are going to figure out exactly how all of that works. We're going to dive into this incredible puzzle of life and discover how every single living thing in that pond, and really all across the globe, actually manages to survive.
Here is our roadmap for today's journey into nature. We're going to explore 5 big ideas: basic needs, what a habitat actually is, food chains, why predators are so incredibly important, and finally, the wild world of invasive species. Let's jump right in.
Okay, let's dive into this first building block, basic needs.
Just to stay alive from one day to the next, organisms require 5 fundamental things. Think about a fish in our pond for a second. It absolutely relies on water to swim and live in. It needs air, specifically oxygen dissolved right in that water, just to breathe. It needs sunlight, beaming down to warm things up and help the aquatic plants grow. It needs food, munching on tiny plants or bugs. And finally, it needs a safe habitat to call home. If you take away even one of these 5 basic things, the organism literally cannot survive.
Which brings us right to our next question. What exactly is a habitat?
So, is a habitat just an address, like a spot on a map? Not quite. A habitat is the place where an organism gets all the factors it needs to live. Think of it as the ultimate survival package. It's the specific environment that naturally provides the water, the air, the sunlight, and the food that a specific creature needs. It's basically nature's all-inclusive resort, totally customized for the plants and animals living there.
And these survival packages are incredibly diverse all across the globe. In a pond, you've got fish and aquatic plants. Jump to a backyard garden, and you find small birds and flowering plants. Out in a sprawling grassland, you have grazing animals. Move to the scorching desert, and you find creatures like camels and tough cacti that barely need a drop of water. Then you have wet, salty mangrove forests with crabs and freezing polar regions with polar bears. The big takeaway here is that every single one of these unique places perfectly supplies the basic needs for the specific things adapted to live there.
Now, what's really interesting about this next slide is how animals actually get their food. Let's look at food chains.
Let's walk through the step-by-step transfer of energy. It's kind of like a relay race. It all starts with step 1, a simple plant, getting its energy straight from the sun. Then, step 2, a hungry grasshopper comes along and munches that plant. Step 3, a hen pecks up the grasshopper. Step 4, a sneaky fox catches the hen. And finally, step 5, after the fox has lived its life, a mighty vulture swoops down. So, if you track it, the energy that started all the way back in the leaves of that tiny plant eventually makes its way up to the vulture. The absolutely crucial point is this. Every single organism depends on another to get its food. That's a food chain. But actually, in reality, a habitat doesn't just have one simple chain, it has dozens of them crisscrossing into this massive, tangled food web. Everything relies on someone else for their meals. We are all deeply connected.
But nature isn't always a peaceful web, which brings us to part 4, the importance of predators.
Let's look at the top of the food chain. What happens if tigers just disappear from the forest? Tigers are top predators, right? They hunt other animals. If all the mighty tigers just vanished tomorrow, what do you think would happen? I'll give you a second to guess. Would the forest suddenly become a safer, happier place? Well, let's look at the actual consequences. It happens exactly like falling dominoes. Step 1. Without tigers hunting them, the deer population explodes. Suddenly there are way too many deer. Step 2. Because there are so many hungry deer, they eat up all the vegetation, causing plant life to drop rapidly. Step 3. With no plants left, insects starve, smaller animals starve, and eventually the deer themselves starve. The entire ecosystem balance is just shattered. It's a totally cascading disaster, all because one top predator was removed.
Let's move to our next section and see how an unexpected visitor changes everything. Let's talk about invasive species.
We just saw the disaster of taking an important animal out of a habitat. But what happens when you drop a brand new one in? Imagine a super aggressive foreign fish is suddenly tossed into that peaceful little pond from the beginning of our explainer. It doesn't belong there. It might eat all the food the native fish need, or honestly, it might just eat the native fish themselves. And because it has no natural predators in this new pond, its population just explodes. These invasive organisms can seriously threaten the species that naturally live there. They basically break the established rules of the entire ecosystem.
We've covered some incredible ground today. Let's quickly stack these massive building blocks together one last time. First, we learned that living things absolutely must have food, water, air, sunlight, and a habitat to survive. Second, we saw how wildly different habitats, from hot deserts to icy poles, support totally different, specially adapted organisms. And third, we discovered that food chains maintain a super delicate ecological balance, a balance that gets totally disrupted by losing predators or gaining invasive species.
I want to leave you with this final thought. Every single organism, from the tiniest green plant catching the sunlight, to the hopping grasshopper, all the way to the mighty tiger roaming the forest, has a vital, absolutely important role in nature. Nothing is there by accident. So, next time you step outside, I challenge you, look a little closer. What secret survival stories are playing out in your own backyard right now? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.